A Mortal's Journey to Immortality Episode 335. In the previous episode, Han Li uncovered the troubled past of Feng Yu, the last direct heir of the once powerful Feng clan. Through their tense exchange, Han Li learned that the clan had deep ties to an ancient Buddhist sect, and even possessed rare techniques capable of dissolving deadly malevolent energy, with danger closing in and poison eating away at his life. Feng Yu revealed the existence of the Feng clan's secret cave, a hidden sanctuary said to hold priceless treasures, countless spirit stones, and the Buddhist arts Han Li urgently sought. Cornered by fate, Feng Yu offered the key to this secret vault as collateral for life-extending pills, but there was still one problem. To confirm the truth, Han Li demanded a cooperative soul search, a risky technique that could expose lies, secrets, and hidden intentions. Driven by desperation, Feng Yu reluctantly agreed, as long as Han Li searched only for the matters he allowed. What will happen next? Stay tuned. And the story continues. Of course, I have no interest in your other affairs. Although we have come to an agreement, let us head somewhere more discreet. This place is too open. Han Li smiled and waved his sleeve at Feng Yu without waiting for him to agree. With that simple gesture, a surge of azure light rose from the ground like a gentle gust, sweeping around Feng Yu's body and catching him before he toppled over. Even with most of his cultivation sealed, Han Li's control of magic power remained terrifyingly precise. To an ordinary cultivator of the Foundation establishment realm, such finesse was unattainable, yet Han Li manipulated the light as if it were an extension of his own limbs. Wrapped in that azure glow, Feng Yu's body lifted from the earth and drifted behind Han Li like a feather carried by the wind. A moment later, the forest stirred. Emerging from between the trees came Han Li's second nascent soul, small in form yet emanating an invisible pressure. It hovered before him, clutching a tri-pointed stake in one hand and the captured primal soul of the purple-robed elder in the other. Han Li's eyes glinted with cold indifference. There is no use for him. Kill him. The second nascent soul grinned, its expression eerie on such a tiny face. It tightened its grip on the trembling fragment of soul and summoned a baleful flame of black-green light. The primal soul writhed for only a moment before being swallowed completely, dissolving into ash that scattered into nothingness. Han Li flicked his finger and sent an egg-sized fireball toward the elder's ruined body, granting the remains a swift cremation. Flames roared, then died, leaving only scorched earth behind. He swept his sleeve, retrieving the old man's storage pouch and a small crimson sword, then meticulously erased all traces of the conflict. With quiet efficiency, he ascended into the sky, carrying Feng Yu along before descending onto a remote field of rocks where his temporary shelter had been arranged. Here, he had to be cautious. With much of his cultivation sealed by the baleful energy backlash, the risks around him multiplied. Even more troublesome was the restriction on his spiritual sense. In truth, his spiritual sense was overwhelmingly powerful, reaching the level of a late nascent soul expert, yet he dared not use it fully. If any grand elder of the soaring tribes sensed his presence, death would descend instantly. Thus, Han Li suppressed the vast ocean of his spiritual perception until it shrank to a mere pool surrounding his immediate surroundings. He could not help sighing bitterly at his earlier misfortune, when he had been discovered nurturing his gold-devouring beetles. Part of his spiritual sense had been resting, and he had grown careless. A mid-nascent soul expert of the soaring tribes, skilled in extreme movement techniques, had been chasing a demon bird just a few kilometers away. Even had Han Li been alert, the sudden appearance of such a cultivator would have left him no time to conceal the beetles. Disaster would have been inevitable. The endless sky plains were unimaginably vast. The fact that this single expert crossed paths with him at such a time made Han Li feel as though fate itself had played a cruel joke on him. The confrontation had forced him to reveal himself, leading both sides to suffer. Now, with most of his magic power sealed and the soaring tribe's elder having barely escaped with a single split nascent soul, both were licking their wounds. The next day, Han Li returned to the tribal encampment. Many tents had already disappeared, evidence that numerous groups had continued their journey. When Han Li located the Grey Heron tribe, He found them packed and ready to depart, clearly having waited for him. Ying Lu's face brightened upon seeing Han Li, and he immediately ushered him toward a carriage. The caravan then began to move, slipping away from the encampment through a quieter route. Han Li settled inside the carriage and closed his eyes, intending to rest, yet only a short moment passed before the carriage halted unexpectedly. Frowning, Han Li extended a thin thread of suppressed spiritual sense. Outside, several tribes approached, their leaders greeting Ying Lu warmly before merging their respective escorts with the Grey Heron tribe. During Han Li's absence, it seemed the tribe had formed an alliance for mutual safety. But there was little strength among them. Most caravans carried minor guards of barely acceptable cultivation. 2 tribes had only spirit condensation stage beginners, who were not considered true cultivators by soaring tribe standards. Even with his power sealed, Han Li was still the strongest among them. He sighed inwardly. Having more people on the journey would only create trouble. Then he noticed the Red Wolf tribe approaching rapidly. The moment he sensed them, his instincts urged him to stretch his spiritual sense outward. But before he could fully do so, a faint, nearly undetectable wave brushed across the caravan. Only because of his immense underlying spiritual power did he even sense it. Han Li's expression hardened. He immediately suppressed his aura further, hiding himself as deeply as possible. The delicate spiritual probe swept across the entire caravan, lingering momentarily on each cultivator. Han Li stood within the carriage, pacing silently, uncertain whether shifting positions would help or worsen his situation. Ultimately, he remained inside, still as stone. Unbeknownst to the caravan, 3 nascent soul cultivators stood in the upper level of a stone structure within the encampment they were leaving behind. The bald elder among them suddenly emitted a startled sound, eyes widening slightly. The large middle-aged man behind him tensed. "Senior Ying, did you discover him?" The bald elder snorted. "Do not panic. It was not the foreign cultivator. There is someone in that caravan who is severely poisoned, surrounded by toxic miasma. I do not know how he is still alive." The palace-robed woman nearby offered a reassuring smile. "Senior Marshal Uncle, Brother Li was simply concerned. You may not fear the foreign cultivator, but the rest of us do. If he were to break free, the minor tribes and low-ranked escorts would all be dragged into disaster. Senior is the only nascent soul expert stationed in this region. We simply hope you will not blame us for worrying." The bald elder gave her a flat look. "Your flattery is unnecessary. If that foreign cultivator were uninjured, even 3 of me would not match him. But now that he has taken the Grand Elder's elemental immortal rest palm, he is no longer terrifying. My task is only to watch this region and prevent him from slipping away. Our tribe must obtain his method for raising so many gold-devouring beetles. That is why a nascent soul cultivator has been stationed at every nearby encampment. Once the day of spirit release ends, the Saintess and the 2 Grand Elders will gather and call forth the Holy Beast's apparition through the sacred relic. With its guidance, the foreign cultivator will be found without fail." The woman exhaled in relief. "So that is why we were never urged to attack. HMPH, you thought your superficial patrols fooled anyone? Even if he is weakened, you still cannot face him. Most cultivators sent to other encampments behaved similarly. We never expected you to flush him out. With his mastery of earth movement techniques and that strange blood-red escape art, only a Grand Elder could restrain him. Even so, continue acting according to orders and sweep the surroundings occasionally." The 2 juniors nodded quickly. Seeking favor, the middle-aged man added, "Senior Ying, regarding the poisoned individual in the caravan, shall we call him back for questioning?" The bald elder paused, stroking his beard. Then he waved dismissively. "No. If he has poison-warding treasures or powerful medicines, his survival is not mysterious. He likely has some senior supporting him. Once the medicine wears off, he will not live more than a few days. If he dies near us, it will be trouble." The middle-aged man bowed his head, mildly embarrassed. Yet the bald elder stared again toward the caravan, a faint crease forming on his brow. When he first swept his spiritual sense through the caravan, he had felt a cultivator's body that was under the effects of an unordinary constraint, but that sensation was very brief. The second time he examined the caravan, He was not able to find any trace of this. This strange occurrence bewildered him and caused him to hesitate. From the old man's strange discovery, there were only two conclusions. Either his spiritual sense was mistaken, or there was a cultivator with a spiritual sense far superior to his own, most likely being the foreign cultivator. Regardless of the outcome, neither of them would be good. As he stood atop the stone structure, the bald elder's thoughts churned with unease. If his perception had been faulty, it would mean disgrace before his juniors and a stain on his reputation. But if it truly had been another cultivator whose spiritual sense overshadowed his own, then the danger was far greater than wounded pride. It would mean the foreign cultivator, Han Li, was still lurking nearby, fully capable of slipping past even a nascent soul guard. He remembered the disastrous battle clearly, nascent soul cultivators frozen into purple ice, their souls locked away in suffocating cold. Even injured, that man's strength was terrifying. Should they fight again, both sides would surely fall together. And now, with no other nascent soul cultivators in the vicinity, the old man had no desire to gamble with his life. He was nearing the end of his lifespan. Each remaining year was precious. With a weary sigh, he stopped considering pursuit altogether. Watching the caravan vanish into the horizon, his two juniors exchanged puzzled glances behind him, unsure why their master had suddenly abandoned all caution and curiosity. Meanwhile, far ahead with the caravan, Han Li finally felt a subtle wave of relief wash through him once they had traveled more than 10 kilometers away. The spiritual sense that had grazed the caravan earlier had not followed. He had reacted quickly, retracting his aura as soon as he sensed the sweep. But his cultivation had fallen so drastically that even a small hesitation felt dangerous. The owner of that spiritual sense clearly cultivated some secret art. It was faint, refined, and almost impossible to detect unless one possessed overwhelming spiritual strength. For the moment, Han Li lay low and maintained his concealment, unwilling to take unnecessary risks. Only after half a day of calm travel did he gradually extend his spiritual sense again, letting it drift out to a range of more than 10 kilometers. Nothing unusual stirred. Feeling a bit more at ease, he flipped his hand and took out the purple-robed old man's storage pouch. With a flick of his wrist, its contents scattered before him in a soft flash of white light. Bottles, jade slips, talismans, and various trinkets fell into view. One by one, Han Li inspected each bottle, breathing in their scents and identifying their contents with practiced precision. Most were ordinary items, nothing worth noting. Then he picked up a plain green bottle and loosened the lid. A thin thread of purple mist slipped out. Han Li's face darkened instantly. He opened his mouth and spat a ball of azure light, surrounding the purple poison before it could spread. But the light quickly dimmed as the toxic mist corroded it. Without delay, he blew the weakened light back into the bottle, sealed it tightly, and finally exhaled in relief. It was a significant discovery, the remaining portion of the agony poison. One of the 10 absolute poisons, rare, malicious, feared. Even major clans rarely possessed it. The Calm clan must have been more formidable than he expected. Carefully, he stored the bottle away before allowing his senses to drift toward one of the Red Wolf tribe's carriages. Inside, Feng Yu sat cross-legged, clutching a pearl the size of a fist. His face was pale, his hair now streaked with white. Threads of black energy seeped from his eyes and flowed into the pearl, which pulsed with a flickering dark glow. Medicine bottles littered the floor, many already opened, a few pills scattered and forgotten. Han Li watched in silence for a moment, then quietly withdrew his spiritual sense. The pearl was indeed a fine treasure, capable of absorbing toxic energy, but it was already nearing its limit. The agony poison within Feng Yu's body was too deeply embedded. The pearl could slow the spread, but not reverse it. The man's hope of purging the poison within 10 days was nothing more than wishful thinking. 8 days passed without major incident. The journey had been peaceful aside from an encounter with 2 low-grade spirit beasts. The caravan's cultivators dispatched them with enthusiasm, eager for the spoils. Han Li, Feng Yu, and a young Foundation establishment cultivator were the only ones who refrained from joining the hunt. That youth briefly piqued Han Li's interest, but a quick inspection revealed him to be a sincere, Ordinary cultivator focused on his training. Nothing mysterious, nothing worthy of further attention. Feng Yu, on the other hand, grew increasingly frantic. His attempts at cleansing the poison had failed again and again. With each passing day his despair deepened. He knew he was the last surviving descendant of the Feng clan and that death meant the end of his bloodline. His fear weighed heavily on him. Han Li, meanwhile, found a measure of peace. 2 days earlier, he had finished comprehending the secret incantation given to him by Monarch Soul Divergence. Even if multiple nascent soul cultivators encircled him, he no longer felt truly threatened. One evening, as dusk settled across the plains, the caravan stopped beside a wide river nearly a kilometer across. Bonfires soon dotted the campsite. Tribes roasted meat, children laughed, and steam rose from pots of food. The scene felt almost peaceful. When Han Li heard the river flowing nearby, he stepped out of his carriage for the first time. Ying Shan, the young woman assigned to attend him, was gnawing on dried meat when he emerged. Startled, she jumped to her feet, cheeks flushing as she hurried to greet him. Han Li simply waved off her nervousness, saying he had only come out to look around. She quickly offered to fetch fresh water. He accepted, and she ran toward the river, returning moments later with a full water sack and a piece of roasted meat. Breathless but eager, she handed them to him with both hands. Han Li smiled lightly and took a bite. It had been many years since he ate mortal food. The flavor felt strangely pleasant. Seeing him eat, the young woman brightened with innocent delight. When he finished, Han Li told her to offer her wrist so he could examine her spirit roots. She eagerly complied. After channeling a small amount of spiritual energy through her meridians, he confirmed her aptitude was decent. She had a fair chance of entering the path of cultivation. With a flick of his fingers, he summoned a small white bottle. Inside was a marrow-cleansing pill, a modest treasure. Insignificant to him but invaluable to someone like her. She bowed repeatedly in gratitude. Han Li nodded and, almost as if speaking casually, asked if the river was part of the Heavenly Water River. The young woman confirmed it, explaining that this was a southern branch that would merge with the main river several dozen kilometers downstream. Han Li fell silent, recalling what he knew. The Heavenly Water River was the greatest river of the endless sky plains. A colossal waterway that stretched so far it eventually flowed into the Jin Empire, where it was known as the Mystical River. But before his thoughts could settle, something disturbed the sky. Han Li abruptly lifted his gaze toward the far side of the river, his expression turning grim. He instructed Ying Shan to warn the tribal elders immediately. Something was approaching from the sky, fast, loud, and powerful. She ran as soon as he spoke, and moments later shouts rippled through the camp. People scrambled away from the riverbank, rushing toward their carriages in alarm. Before most of them could retreat, a streak of green light erupted over the horizon. A deep, rolling cry echoed across the water, shaking the air. Then, from within the glow, an enormous bat emerged, its wings wrapped in eerie green radiance. Its monstrous shape and predatory aura sent chills down the spines of the mortals present. Many stumbled backward, trembling. The cultivators of the soaring tribes, though more composed, leapt down from their carriages with harsh, focused expressions, preparing for whatever threat the giant creature might bring. Its sinister and frightening appearance caused the mortals to shiver in fear at the sight of it. The many soaring tribes cultivators in the caravan all leapt out at their carriages and looked at it with solemn expressions. Han Li's gaze wasn't focused on the bat but the cultivators that were standing on top of it. Although they were quite some distance away, he was still able to clearly see them with his bright sight spirit eyes. What he saw immediately put him on alert. There were 8 cultivators in total, 4 men and 4 women. The men wore embroidered robes and jade ornaments, carrying themselves with an air of aristocratic pride. The women were barefoot, dressed in pristine white robes held together by golden belts, their bearing elegant yet cold. Their attire alone made it obvious they were not from the soaring tribes. Most of them were at the foundation establishment stage, but the 2 at the front were unmistakably core formation cultivators. Fortunately, from their behavior, Han Li could tell they had not come specifically for him. The enormous bat beneath them swooped over the caravan, its wings nearly 20 meters across. As it beat them downward, A violent storm of wind blasted across the camp. Several carriages toppled over, belongings scattered across the dirt, and many mortals were thrown to the ground, crying out in fear. Even the cultivators of the soaring tribes exchanged pale, uneasy glances. None of them could withstand a beast of this level, much less the powerful cultivators standing upon it. A stern voice suddenly echoed from above. A middle-aged man with a cold expression swept his gaze across the caravan and demanded, in the language of the soaring tribes, that their leader step forward. Ying Lu nervously approached, bowing deeply, but the core formation cultivator snorted in disdain. With a casual flick of the bat's wing, another blast of wind hurled Ying Lu backward, nearly knocking him off his feet. The message was clear. They had no interest in speaking with mortals. The cultivators of the tribe turned as one to look at Han Li. He was the highest-ranked cultivator among them, whether he liked it or not. Han Li felt a wave of helpless irritation. At that moment, he noticed two cultivators had yet to appear, Feng Yu, who remained trapped in despair because of the poison devouring his life, and another young cultivator of the soaring tribes who had shown curiosity toward Han Li earlier. Their absence tugged at Han Li's instincts. Something was off. Still, he stepped forward and addressed the intruders respectfully but not submissively. He asked why they had come and assured them the caravan would cooperate. The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed at Han Li's calm tone, and with cold suspicion, he demanded that Han Li remove his cloak. Han Li complied without argument, revealing an ordinary, unremarkable face. The cultivators on the bat examined him carefully, some using hidden techniques to probe for disguise. Eventually, the man declared that Han Li was not the traitor they were seeking. Then came a new demand. Everyone was to come out. They were hunting someone, and they intended to search the caravan. The 6 Foundation establishment cultivators flew from the bat and encircled the 2 silent carriages, those belonging to Feng Yu and the mysterious young cultivator. The silence that followed was suffocating. Even Han Li frowned, unable to guess what would happen next. The core formation cultivator grew impatient. With a wave of his hand, several blazing fireballs formed and shot down toward one of the carriages. But before they could land, the carriage burst apart from within. A wave of sharp, bone-chilling cold burst outward, snuffing out the fireballs like candles. A burly young man stepped out, holding a brilliant snow-white crystal sphere in both hands. The swirling cold radiating from it made frost dance in the air. The group on the bat reacted with immediate recognition and satisfaction. Their expressions turned from irritation to triumph. Commander Gu, the middle-aged cultivator, spoke with venom. He accused the young man, Zhang Jianying, of stealing the snow crystal pearl. He explained that the pearl had originally been entrusted to Zhang Jianying by the 9 Immortals' palace. They had sent him to North Ice Mountain to deliver it to Sage North. But instead he had fled with it. If he surrendered quietly, they would spare his soul. As soon as the accusations were spoken, the 6 Foundation establishment cultivators moved, surrounding Zhang Jianying in a tight circle. The young man, however, burst out laughing. He shouted back that the trip to Sage North had been nothing more than a disguised execution. His ice-attributed spirit roots made him perfect sacrificial material for refining the snow crystal pearl. If he had obediently gone, he would have died. He claimed that he had run simply to survive. The icy woman beside Commander Gu responded harshly. She argued that the 9 Immortals' palace had given him everything he had: cultivation resources, status, even permission to marry and have a family. She insisted that using his body as repayment was only fair. Zhang Jianying angrily rejected her words. He claimed that with his mutated spirit roots, any major sect would have taken him in. The palace's kindness was merely transactional. Then he lifted the snow crystal pearl, releasing a cloud of pure white frost that expanded into a chilling mist more than 60 meters wide. The woman only sneered. She signaled her subordinates, and the 6 cultivators released scarlet spell flags that merged into a massive flaming cloud. The fire bore down on the frost, steam erupting where the 2 forces collided. Although the snow crystal pearl was powerful, Zhang Jianying's cultivation was too low. He had never refined the treasure properly. The fire cloud engulfed the frost, steadily shrinking it despite his desperate efforts. Han Li looked on with surprise as he listened to the exchange in the Great Jin language. He had learned the dialect beforehand, but even he was stunned. The use of titles like commander, mistress, and palace sounded unlike ordinary sect hierarchies. It reminded him of the complex power structures he had once encountered in the scattered star seas. Perhaps the cultivation world of the Great Jin was far more intricate than the heavenly south. The soaring tribes, unable to understand the words exchange, felt only dread. The mortals scrambled into hiding, while the tribe's cultivators withdrew cautiously, doing everything possible not to provoke the strangers. The icy mist shrank rapidly. Soon it was barely 10 meters across. Flickering weakly, the core formation woman ordered Commander Ji Yu to capture Zhang Jianying alive. The man nodded and streaked forward in a flash of white light. The Foundation establishment cultivators released the fire cloud, allowing him to strike directly. A powerful explosion rattled the air. The mist dissipated, revealing Commander Ji Yu holding the unconscious Zhang Jianying in one hand and the snow crystal pearl in the other. The battle had ended as swiftly as it had begun. The icy woman seemed satisfied. With the traitor secured, she instructed their group to withdraw before causing unnecessary trouble on the endless sky plains. But just as they prepared to leave, Commander Gu's gaze suddenly locked onto something lying on the ground, a stone the size of a clenched fist. Its surface partly cleaned by the drifting steam, though most of it was still covered in dirt. The exposed portion shimmered with a faint golden flame under its crystalline shell. Han Li followed the man's stare, and his own eyes narrowed. Something about the stone felt familiar, but he could not immediately place it. Then a voice echoed sharply within his mind, Monarch Soul Divergence shouting in excitement. The ancient soul identified the object instantly, a Goldflame Stone, a rare, priceless material not seen in the heavenly south for countless years. And in that moment, Han Li recalled its true importance. It was one of the crucial ingredients required to craft the Seven Flame Fan. It had not appeared in the heavenly south for countless years, and it was the kind of treasure one could only hope to find in the Great Jin. In a rush of wind, golden light flashed in front of the middle-aged man and the Goldflame Stone suddenly flew through the air. Slow to react, he reached out to grab it in his alarm, but the Goldflame Stone flew out in a streak of light and into Han Li's grasp. In that single effortless motion, Han Li shattered the expectations of everyone present. He stood calmly, holding the precious stone between his fingers as though it were nothing more than a curiosity. The cultivators around him froze, their expressions filled with disbelief. A simple Foundation establishment cultivator had just snatched a treasure from beneath the nose of a core formation commander. And he behaved as though he had merely picked up a stray pebble. The middle-aged man's face twisted with fury. His voice, low and poisonous, cut through the tense silence. He demanded that Han Li hand over the stone and even offered to spare his life only if Han Li severed one of his own arms. But Han Li merely smiled. His tone was light, almost courteous, as he explained that he, too, desired the item, and he had no intention of giving it away. Nor did he plan to cripple himself for another man's benefit. He even suggested, as though offering a polite alternative, that the man simply withdraw. The commander trembled with rage. White light flared around him, signaling he was moments away from launching an assault. His icy female companion immediately sensed the tension and questioned him, demanding to know the nature of the stone and whether it was worth provoking unnecessary trouble. After a brief exchange of secret voice transmissions, her shock became clear. The commander claimed with certainty that the stone was a rare treasure recorded in ancient texts, and that delivering it to their palace master would earn them immense merit. Once she confirmed that Han Li appeared to be only a Foundation establishment cultivator, the icy woman's hesitation melted into cold, murderous resolve. She gave a chilling command: attack and kill all members of the soaring tribe, leaving no witnesses. In her eyes, a few low-ranked cultivators and even hundreds of mortals were not enough to make their sect face any meaningful repercussions. And with that, she unleashed a deadly streak of silver light. Her strike tore through the protective blue barrier of a soaring tribe cultivator, slicing him cleanly in half. The silver light circled back, revealing itself to be a razor-sharp white dagger. Having witnessed their comrade's death, the remaining tribe members fought back, but they were hopelessly outmatched. Against 6 Foundation establishment cultivators from the Great Jin, they perished almost instantly. Their deaths were swift, brutal, and ultimately meaningless to their attackers. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man, driven by greed, did not follow the woman's broader orders. Instead, he focused solely on eliminating Han Li. With a shout, he released a flying sword that streaked toward Han Li like a bolt of cold light. Yet the attack never reached its mark. Han Li responded with a soft sigh and flicked his wrist, summoning a small, pitch-black flag. At his command, it expanded and blossomed into a protective barrier of dark radiance. The flying sword slammed into the barrier and bounced away harmlessly, leaving the commander pale with disbelief. Panicked, the man hastily altered his sword technique, transforming the silver weapon into a massive python of radiant energy. The creature coiled around the black barrier and bit fiercely at it. But the barrier remained unmoved, as though it were an indestructible fortress. The icy woman's expression darkened. The situation was no longer what they had imagined. Clearly, there was a reason this so-called Foundation establishment cultivator dared to contend with core formation opponents. She ordered her subordinates to unleash a massive cloud of flame to burn through Han Li's barrier. The sky lit up with deep red fire, churning and crackling as it descended toward him. But instead of worrying, Han Li's voice carried an almost amused tone. Light erupted from within the black barrier, and from its peak emerged a tiny figure, Han Li's second nascent soul. Dark green in color and holding a miniature version of the flag. The icy woman's face drained of color. She stammered, recognizing at once what this meant. Han Li was a nascent soul cultivator. Terror overtook her, and she begged for mercy, promising to withdraw immediately. She recalled her dagger, hoping to escape without provoking further wrath. But Han Li's second nascent soul had no intention of letting them leave. With a wave of its flag, the banner expanded to enormous size, flooding the area with thick black demonic mist. The moment the mist touched the Great Jin cultivators' magic tools and treasures, every one of them lost control over their own items. Panic exploded among them. One terrified voice cried out that the banner was none other than the Yin Sifting banner, the sect protecting treasure of the infamous Yin Sifting sect. The middle-aged man immediately abandoned his weapon and fled at full speed. A streak of desperate white light in the sky. The icy woman, equally terrified, forced her giant bat mount to unleash its full speed, fleeing in the opposite direction. Their Foundation establishment followers scattered as well, fleeing like startled insects. But Han Li merely watched from above, his eyes cold and emotionless. With a calm gesture, he summoned a dozen streaks of light that burst from his waist pouch, his 6 winged frost centipedes. They shot into the sky in coordinated pairs, chasing after each fleeing cultivator. Against these insects, even a core formation cultivator would have hesitated. The Foundation establishment cultivators stood no chance. Each one was swiftly overtaken and engulfed in freezing spiritual energy, their bodies sealed in thick ice, preserved for the centipedes to consume later. Meanwhile, the towering demonic gate created by the Yin Sifting banner opened, and the gold-devouring beetle appeared, surrounded in rolling black mist. Its wings unfurled, and it transformed into a streak of golden light as it pursued the middle-aged man. The man's barriers were shredded effortlessly, and the beetle bored directly into his body. His scream echoed across the sky as he plummeted and died. Han Li's second nascent soul, commanding the storm of demonic mist, pursued the icy woman. Despite her frantic casting and the desperate speed of her mount, she could not escape. The black cloud swallowed her whole, ending her life in silent finality. Moments later, the black-green nascent soul returned from the hunt, guiding the Yin Sifting banner back to Han Li. The battlefield was silent, the air heavy with the remnants of fear and destruction. Han Li stood alone in the sky, calm and unhurried, as though nothing extraordinary had happened. The surviving mortals of the soaring tribe dared not approach him, they could only watch from afar, trembling at the sight of the power he had displayed. By the time the second nascent soul returned, Han Li was fiddling with the snow crystal pearl in his hands. when he turned to look at what the Great Jin cultivators left behind. He had a bewildered expression. Han Li muttered to himself as he looked down at the corpse of the burly youth that was originally in possession of the snow crystal pearl. He had wished to save the youth and ask about the Great Jin. But from his black-purple complexion, it appeared he committed suicide with poison. Han Li studied the young man's lifeless body, his thoughts a mix of pity and detachment. It was clear that the youth had anticipated the calamity he was about to face and had taken measures to prevent his soul from being refined after death. Han Li noted the presence of a powerful poison in the man's system, a final safeguard against capture or torment. Yet even this precaution had not been enough to preserve his life. And Han Li realized that the young man must have done something else to hasten the dissipation of his soul. Shaking his head, Han Li felt a peculiar mixture of amusement and exasperation. It was almost comical to imagine how shocked the youth would have been if he knew that Han Li would have intervened even after his death. Still, there was no bond between them, no sense of obligation or sorrow beyond passing curiosity. With a flick of his hand, Han Li cast a small fireball, reducing the body to ash in a moment, leaving only silence behind. A moment later, the dense cloud of devilish qi returned to Han Li. His second nascent soul floated above him, waving a small black flag, and absorbed the qi completely. The nascent soul circled Han Li once before slipping silently into the top of his head, leaving him calm and unperturbed as he surveyed the scene. Below, the soaring tribe mortals had recovered just enough courage to glance toward Han Li with fear. He spoke directly to one of the carriages, his voice sharp and commanding. "Let's not stay here any longer. Follow me. You still need to tell me the location of the secret cave before you die." Feng Yu emerged slowly, his head shrouded in a cloak, yet a glimmer of excitement flickered in his tone. "So you were actually an elder of the Yin Sifting Sect. No wonder you were able to easily kill that traitor Feng Zhen and possessed a medicine as rare as the vast essence pill." Han Li did not pause to explain fully. With a cold chuckle, he mounted his flying sword and soared into the sky. Feng Yu hesitated briefly, then followed closely behind. Two streaks of light carved across the clouds as they departed, leaving the mortals below in stunned silence. The soaring tribe mortals slowly regrouped, surveying their devastated caravan with grim expressions. All the immortals they had hired to protect them were either dead or gone. Confusion mixed with sorrow as they struggled to understand the overwhelming power that had descended upon them. Over the following days, news of the event spread rapidly. Though the slain cultivators were low-grade, the involvement of the Great Jin made their deaths highly significant. After investigation, the surviving soaring tribe cultivators and leaders concluded that the foreign cultivator responsible must be a high-ranking elder of the Yin Sifting Sect. From the mortals' perspective, it seemed clear. The Yin Sifting Sect had sent one of its most elite elders into the endless sky plains. This realization sent tremors through the soaring tribe immortals. They speculated on the motives behind the attack. Some recalled the holy wars several decades prior, when the Yin Sifting Sect had supported the Molan tribes. Perhaps this elder had come to exact revenge, infiltrating deep into the endless sky plains to settle old scores. Though uncertain, this reasoning provided a convenient justification for the fearsome power displayed. In response, the Endless Sky Temple quickly mobilized. Patrols were sent along the borders of the Jin Empire and the Endless Sky Plains to prevent the Yin Sifting Sect from rescuing their elder. Dozens of nascent soul cultivators were gathered to ensure that this foreign elder would not leave the Endless Sky Plains alive. The temple's pride and authority would not allow such a figure to escape unnoticed. And the cultivators' preparations were meticulous and urgent. During the day of Spirit Release, the Endless Sky Priestess personally oversaw the Spirit Release Rites, completing the ceremony hastily in 2 days to maintain order and focus. Over 100 high-grade immortals, freshly bathed and prepared, assembled behind a vast temple in a strictly guarded area. This restricted zone spanned over 3,000 meters, centered around a massive formation diagram embedded with over 100 mid-grade spirit stones. At the center stood a 20-meter-tall altar of simple white stone. Its surface bore only several talismanic inscriptions, lacking any other decoration, yet exuded solemnity and power. Around the formation, A dozen early nascent soul cultivators stood motionless, their expressions solemn as they awaited the arrival of the key figures. After a brief moment, 3 figures entered the restricted area. A slender woman in silver robes led them, her face partially concealed by a white shawl. Yet even through the covering, her flawless skin, jet black hair, and mesmerizing eyes radiated grace and authority, capturing the attention of all present. Beside her walked an elegant man in his early 30s, his eyes deep and commanding. A second woman, with striking purple hair and yellow robes, accompanied them, her exposed arms revealing small, black ghostly heads biting into her flesh without causing her the slightest discomfort. The assembled soaring tribe cultivators immediately bowed in respect. The silver-robed woman addressed the assembly with clear, pleasant tones, explaining that the summoning ceremony was not only to hunt the foreign cultivator but also to stabilize the incarnation of a sacred beast within their temple. She emphasized the preparation and effort invested by the accompanying Grand Elders, calling upon the participants to assist with all their strength. The elegant man and the purple-haired woman clapped their hands together, shaking the ground with heavy thuds. From both sides of the plaza, 2 groups of 6-meter-tall bronze statues moved forward. Each group contained 8 statues, their golden bodies gleaming in the light. They carried enormous wooden palanquins carefully, moving with deliberate, measured steps toward the altar. Upon reaching the center, the palanquins were set down, revealing the captured beasts. One contained a massive bison glowing with azure light, while the other held a huge white python coiled upon itself. Both beasts exuded a terrifying aura of demonic chi, marking them as peak grade 7 creatures on the cusp of grade 8. Their capture had clearly demanded years of preparation from the Grand Elders. The silver-robed woman addressed the assembly calmly, identifying the creatures as the Azure Wind Bison and the Ice Armor Python. She explained that they would serve as sacrifices to ensure the sacred beast's incarnation could remain in the mortal world. With a wave of her hand, silver threads extended, binding the creatures and lifting them from the ground toward the altar. The bison awoke and struggled violently, recognizing the danger it faced, but over 100 silver chains and multiple restrictions held it firmly in place. Its furious roars were silenced as it floated helplessly toward the altar. Unable to resist, the saintess flicked her sleeve, summoning a small cauldron wrapped in azure flames that circled above the bison. With careful gestures and a slowly intoned incantation, the flames surged and expanded, growing the cauldron to 3 meters in height. If Han Li saw this, he would have been shocked, dumbstruck. Apart from the cauldron's flames, it looked almost exactly the same as the Heaven Void cauldron. It had both a similar shape and similar decorative carvings on its surface. In this episode, we saw Han Li face overwhelming danger as mysterious and powerful cultivators from the Great Jin appeared in the endless sky plains. He skillfully navigated deadly confrontations, uncovering the rare and precious Goldflame Stone, and showcasing his extraordinary abilities that even core formation cultivators could not challenge. Along the way, he revealed the presence of the Yin Sifting Sect's nascent soul protection and used his clever strategies and formidable allies to turn the tide, eliminating powerful enemies and asserting his dominance. Meanwhile, the Endless Sky Temple prepared for the Spirit Release Rites, summoning sacred beasts like the Azure Wind Bison and the Ice Armor Python to ensure the stability of the sacred beast's incarnation in the mortal world. Han Li's intelligence, power, and calm demeanor once again highlighted why he is a force to be reckoned with. What happens next? Stay tuned for the next episode of A Mortal's Journey to Immortality. If you enjoyed this episode or found it exciting, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to receive the latest updates on Han Li's journey. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.